In this video, I'll be showing you how to make a new soccer ball bracelet using the Rainbow Loom. So what you will need is one loom, and you want to have it set that the pins are in a staggered position so they are not in line with one another. And you're going to start with the arrows facing towards you so that all of these opened ends are facing you. And you will be able to fit 3 soccer balls on when using one loom. So for each soccer ball you will need 5 black bands and 15 white bands. And then for your background, the main part of the bracelet, you will need 90 bands, and I have chosen a teal color for this. So we're going to start by placing the soccer balls on the loom, and we're going to start with a white band which needs to be doubled. So in order to do this, you just want to put your hook through, twist, and place it back on your hook. And now this is going to be placed on the left side of your loom. If you count to that 4th pin up, it's going to stretch diagonally down and across, and it's going to skip this center row and go all the way to the right. So it's going to be a long stretch, and we actually want to go outside of this center. We don't want it to go through, so even if you put it on and it looks like this, you can just pull this forward. You want it to be in front of this pin, and now you're going to push this down. And now we need to add a couple of black bands onto this white band. So the first one that we're going to do, we want to be around the center of this white band, and we want it to wrap around both edges of the band. So you're going to take your hook, and you can go straight up through the pins here and just put your hook underneath. We're going to take this black band and get it on the hook, and then you're going to pull it underneath, wrap it around, and put your hook back through the loose end. And now what you want to happen is you want the band that's closest to the base here to actually go over top of the other band. You're actually making a slip knot, pulling the one end through the other, and then you want to sort of just wiggle it back and forth a little bit to get it snug, but you don't want to pull it too hard, because the tighter you pull, the smaller it's going to become on the band, the tighter it's going to grip it, and we don't want it to be too tiny. And now what you're going to do is just take this loop and put it in the middle, and you want this to be as close to the center as possible where the slip knot is, so you can just slide it over into that middle. Now I'm going to add another black band here, and this time I want it to go on the white band that's closest to me on the right hand side. I'm going to reach my hook in from the far side and go in the middle of these 2 white bands and take my hook out to the front here. I'm going to hook this black band and pull it up through, and then I'm going to place my hook through this other band that's in my fingers. And again, I want the band that's closest to the base to come and go over top of this other side and then pull it snugly. And now I want to place this band on the pin that is below where this white pin is, 1 pin below. And now I want another black band to go on the other side here. This time I want it to go on the white bands that are farthest away. I'm going to reach my hook in from the opposite side, so I'm putting it closest to me and sticking the hook out, grabbing that black band, and then pulling it up through, putting it back on my hook. And again, I want the band that's closest to the base to go over top of the other band, and then wiggle it so it gets snug. And now I'm going to place this loop on the pin above here. And now that's it for that white band. So we're going to add another white band. So this time we're going to go on the left hand row to the third pin up. We're going to double this band. It's going to stretch diagonally and up to the right. It's going to be a long stretch again. And this time we want it to go over that center pin. And we have 2 more black bands we have to add to this white one we just put on. So the first one is going to go on the left hand side, and I want it to wrap around the white bands that are closest to me. And I want to reach my hook in from the far side this time. So I'm putting my hook down through only just these front white bands, and I am putting the black band on, pulling it through, and then putting the other side back on. And now again I want the band that's closest to the base to go over top, and then I'm going to pull this, just wiggle it, and now it's going to go on the pin below here. And now finally, for my last black band, that is going to go on the far side of this white band up above here, and I want to reach my hook in this direction. So the hook is closest to me, and I'm pushing the hook part out, putting this on and pulling it up through, and then putting the other side on. And then I want the band that's closest to the base to come over top. And again, you're going to wiggle it, and now it's going to go to the pin above here and just go on there. So these black bands are just on these outside pins as a placeholder for right now. And in the last step, we'll move them into the middle of the circle here that we're working with. So now I have another white band that needs to be doubled, and this time it's going to go on the center pin on the second one up, and it's going to stretch all the way across to the fourth pin up. And again, we want it to just straddle this center pin, so it can go right in the middle there. And we're going to push all of this down to the bottom. And now what we're going to do is add a layer of white bands that is going to just go around in a clockwise direction. So I'll start on the left hand row, and it's just going to go one right after the other. And it's just going to outline this circle. That's the shape of the ball. And now that we have 2 layers on, I want the bottom layer to come off. So I'll start on the same pin here. This time you're grabbing the 2 bottom bands. It's a doubled band, so it's going to be tighter. And it's also going to have this black band looped around it. So you just carefully want to pull it out and over the top and into the middle. And now you're going to go up to the next pin. Again, you're grabbing the 2 bottom bands, pulling it out and over the top. Just make sure that these upper bands are staying on the pins as you're doing that, because it is tight. And now for this pin here in the center, you're going to have to grab it from the side. So if you take the back of your hook and you push back on these upper bands, it gives you a better view of what you're grabbing. So from the side, you're grabbing these 2 bottom bands, this doubled band, and sometimes they're a little tough to separate. Now you're just pulling that out and into the middle. Now flip to the other side. Again, you're getting these 2 bottom bands, and you're always working from the outside in. And now again, move down to the next one. And then finally here at the bottom, this is the last one. And now what you want to do is take your hook and just sort of push all of this in towards the center. And now we have 1 more layer to put on, and it's just going to be white, and we're going to go around the circle again. So I'll start on the left here, and I'll just go around. And now once again we just want that bottom layer to come off, and it's going to be 2 bands, so I'm grabbing 2 bands at once and just pulling it over top. Again, always from the outside in. And now this middle pin is the hardest one to grab. You're pushing back on these upper bands so you can see which 2 you need to grab, and just pulling them into the center. And again, from the outside, we're doing the other side. And then here, back to the bottom here. And then again, just take your hook and push all of this into the middle. And now we want all of these black bands to go on the pins around this circle. So I'm going to start in the middle, and you might have to push back on these upper bands till you can find that loop. And you want that to come out and move to the pin in the center that's closest to you. And now we want the black bands to come off that are along the edges here. So I'm going to take this bottom left one. It's going to stretch diagonally across, and it's going to go to this pin here. And now I'm going to take the other black band, and that's going to stretch again diagonally across to the upper part of the soccer ball on the left hand side. And now the bands that are up top here are going to come off and stretch diagonally across to the lower part of the soccer ball. This is coming to the right hand row, and this one is going to stretch across to the left hand row. And then you want to push all of this down. And that is it for that first soccer ball. So we're going to go up the loom to place the next soccer ball. So in the center row, you're going to skip the next pin, and then that next pin up is going to be the lower edge of the next soccer ball, this circle here. So in order to get the correct placement of this white doubled band we're going to start with, if you look in the left hand row where we started our first soccer ball, you're going to count up to the 4th pin above there, so 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that is where we want our next doubled white band to be placed. Again, it's going to stretch diagonally down and to the right all the way across. And now we don't want it to be caught up on this center pin, so you're going to take the band that's on the back of that pin and move it forward. And now we have 3 black bands that we need to place on this white band. So the first one is going to go around both of these white bands in the middle. So I will take my hook and I will just put it through here, grab this black band and pull it underneath, and then put it back on. Again, I'm getting the band closest to the base to go over top, and I'm just going to gently go back and forth, and I want this to be in the center of this band, and then I'm putting this loop back on the center pin. And now I am taking another black band, and again I want it to go on the right hand side here with the band that's closest to me. So I'm reaching my hook in from the far side, and I'm going to grab this black band, get it on my hook, and pull it up through, and then put that other end on. And I'm taking the one closest to the base, pulling it over, and wiggling back and forth. And this band is going to go to the pin below here. Again, I'm taking another black band, and I'm going on the left hand side, and I want it to be the band that's the farthest away here, and I'm putting my hook in from this opposite side here, grabbing the black band, pulling it through, and putting the other band back on, and then getting this one to go over top of the other and wiggle, and now place it on the pin that's above here. Now I'm taking another white band and doubling it. It's going to go to the pin below on the left hand row, and stretch diagonally across. Now you can see that my black band that I had on the center actually came off, so I'm just going to get that to get back on that center pin. It's not cooperating. And now I have two black bands I want to add to this white band. So I'll start on the left hand side, the band that's closest to me. I'm reaching my hook in from the far side, grabbing that black band, pulling it up through, and then placing it back on my hook and getting this band closest to the base to go over the top, wiggle, and it's going down to the left. And now my last black band is going on the white bands that are the farthest away on the right hand side. I'm reaching my hook in from this other direction now, pulling the black band up through, putting it back on, and getting this band to go over top, and wiggle that, and then it's going to get placed on the pin above on the right hand row. Now I'm taking another white band and doubling it. It's going to stretch in the center across these three pins. And then push all of this down. And then I'm going to outline this circle again with the white bands. So I'll start on the left here. Again, I'm just going in a clockwise direction, always one right after the other. And now I want to remove that bottom layer. It's going to be this band that's doubled, and you're grabbing it from the outside and pulling it over. Just make sure that these upper bands stay on as you're doing it. Again, in the middle here, you're having to reach from the side. And now flip to the other side, again, from the outside. And then finally at the bottom here. And now you want to push all of this in. And now I'm going to do one more layer of the white. I want to have all of this pushed down so you can add that next layer. And back to the start here. And then once again, you want the bottom layer to come off. It's going to be two bands at once. And you're just working your way around. Again, push back so you can get a clear view. Grab these two from the side and pull over. And then on the other side. And then back to the bottom here. And then push all of this in. And now we want all of these black bands to move to the outside pins. So I'll start in the middle. And this black band is moving down. And now we want the rest of the black bands to move in as well. So I'll start on the left hand side. It's coming diagonally across into the right hand row. And now the one on the bottom right is moving diagonally up and to the left. And now the band on the top left is coming diagonally across to the right. And the band on the top right is coming diagonally across to the left. And then you want to push all of this down. And now we have just one more soccer ball left. So again, in the center row, we're skipping the next pin, and then this next pin is going to be the bottom of the next soccer ball. So again, to find your band placement for the next white doubled band, what you want to do is from this last pin on the left hand side, the one that has the bands on it, you want to count up to the fourth pin, which is going to be that second pin in from the very end of your loom. That band is going to stretch diagonally from the left all the way down to the right. Again, we don't want it to go over this center pin, so I'm going to move that forward. And now I want to add my black bands. So again, I want one to go right in the center here. So I'm taking my hook in between the rows here, reaching up, grabbing this black band and pulling it underneath, putting it back on, taking this band that's closest to me, pulling it over the top, wiggle, and then move it into the middle and place the top of this band, the loop part, right on the center. And now I have two more black bands to go on there. So on the right hand side, I want the bands that are closest to me, the white bands. I'm going to reach my hook in from the far side, down in between here, grabbing this black band and pulling it up through, placing it back on my hook, and getting the band that's closest to the base to come over top, wiggle, and move this band to the pin below. And now I have another black band. I want to go on the far side of the white here. So this time I'm reaching in from this, my hook's coming in from the lower side, grabbing that black band, pulling it up through, put it back on, and then get it to come through like that, wiggle, and put this band on the upper pin. It's going to be the very end pin in the left hand row. And now we want to put another white band. We're doubling it. It's going to this pin below, and it's stretching diagonally and up to the right. It's going to just straddle this center pin. You can push all of this down. Now we have the last two black bands. On the left hand side, we're reaching in from the far side here with our hook, the white band that's closest to you, pulling the black up through, putting it back on, and then pulling this one over top, wiggle. It's going to the pin below on the left. And finally, we want this band to go on the far side of the white band here. And this time I'm reaching my hook in from the bottom. And I want that black band to get hooked. Go up through, put this back on. Again, the band closest to the base goes over, wiggle, and this is going to go all the way on the end of the right hand row. Now I have another white band to double. It's going across these three center pins. It's going to straddle that middle one. And we can push this all down. And now I'm going to outline the circle. Hopefully by now everyone is getting the hang of it. It's a little tricky to get those black bands on, just because it's hard to get your hook at the right angle, and you don't want that black band to slip off as you're trying to get it to go underneath of the white. Now we want the bottom layer to be removed. Again, you're taking two at once. It's going to be snug. It's tight because they're doubled, making sure those upper bands stay on. Again, this is the tricky one. Push back with your hook, and you're going to have to grab it from the side. Now around to the other side here. And back to the start. Now you want to push all of these in. And we're going to add that last layer of white around the circle. You want this all to be pushed down so you have room to add it on. And now again, the bottom layer, it's going to be the 2 bands at once from the outside and into the middle. This one you're going to have to push back so you can see what you're doing, and from the side they're coming over. And now back to the start here. Again, use your hook to push all of this in towards the center. And then we have these black bands we want to go around the outside of the pins. So starting in the middle here, I'm taking this black band and moving it down. Now on the left, it's going diagonally up to the right. On the right, it's going diagonally up to the left. And now on the top left, it's coming diagonally down to the right. And you want it to just go alongside of this center pin. And then finally, this one's coming down to the left. And again, you want all of this to be pushed down to the bottom of those pins. And now we're going to turn the loom around because it's time to add the background bands. So for this part, I'm always going to be putting 2 bands on at once, and I highly recommend you do that because if you try it with just one, it's not going to hold its shape. So in the center pin, you want to go out and to the left, and you want to try and get these bands to be as straight as possible when you put them on. So if you think they look a little twisted, you can just use your hook to go around like I just did. And now I'm just going to work my way up the left side of the loom, and I'm always going to be putting on 2 bands at once, and I always want to push it down to the bottom. And you want to stop 1 pin short from the end of the loom, and the last set of bands is going to go into the middle. And now you're going back to the start again. And the arrows are still facing away from you. This time we're going to go from that center pin out and to the right. Again, you're always using 2 bands at once. And then this time we're going to just work our way up the right side of the loom. And you're always pushing it down to the bottom as well. Again, you're stopping 1 pin short from the end of the loom, and the last 2 bands are going into the center. And now back to the start again. This time we're just going to go up the center row, just repeating that same pattern. And now you're going all the way to the end of that pin. And then we're going to turn the loom around again so that the arrows are once again facing towards you. And now we need to put the cap bands on. So on the very end here, we're going to double a band, place it right in the center on the end pin. And the rest of the bands are going to stretch from the left-hand side over to the right. And they're also going to go around the center pin to make a triangle. So we're just going to do that working up the loom. And this will be the last one that I place. I'm not doing it on the very end. And then you're going to go back to the start, and it's time to loop your bands. So on the end pin here where we're going to begin in the middle, it's very full. You have the 2 bands on top that are the cap band. Then the next two bands move forward, the next two bands go out to the left, and then the bottom two bands move out and to the right. So we're just going to be working with these in order. So I'm taking my hook, putting it through the middle, pushing back on the top two bands with the back of my hook, grabbing these next two bands. Now you're going to need to hold this cap band in place, and then you need to pull these out and move them forward. And now you're going to go back down through here, push back on the top two, get the next two. These are going to move out and to the left, right on the top, and then go back down through, grab the bottom two, and those are going to move out and to the right. So I'm just going to work my way up the left side of the loom. On this end pin there are 4 bands on top. You need to get your hook, push back on those top 4, grab the bottom 2 and move them out and forward. And now on all of these pins here we have this triangle that is the cap band. So there's that one single band that you always want to make sure as you're putting your hook down through, it's going in the middle, and that this cap band is always behind your hook. So that'll be important for the rest of the way up. And now we want all of the bands on these pins to move ahead, the soccer ball bands. So we have actually 2 white, a black, and then the 2 upper teal bands. So we're going to grab the 2 bands at first, the top ones, the teal, and then you're going to go back down through, push back, and then I'm going to grab all 3 of this at once. I'm going to pull them out and forward. It is going to be a little bit tight, and I usually only do 2 bands at once, and in all of my previous videos I've done that. So if you feel like it's too much stress on your hook, you can do them in 3 different motions. You can grab those top 2 bands and move them forward, and then you can go back down and just get the black one, and then you can go back down and get the 2 white. So whatever you feel more comfortable doing, but for this video I'm going to just grab 2 and then 3. So on this next pin we have just the 2 teal. In between the soccer balls you're only going to have that background color to grab. Now we're up to the next soccer ball, so I'm going to take the 2 green, or teal, it's actually the name of the color. Go back down through, I'm getting all 3 and moving them ahead. Now pushing back, I'm getting the top 2. And then going back down through for the rest. You just want to make sure that all 5 bands are always moving forward. And now I have just the 2 on these next pins. And then finally here we're repeating, we're getting all 5 bands to move ahead. And the same thing on this next one. Sometimes they're a little bit hard to separate. There, I got 3 on that time, and 2 here. And then these last 2 bands are going to come off and move into that center pin. Now I'm going to go back to the start, and I'm going to repeat this going up the right hand row. So again, we're having 4 bands on top that need to get behind your hook. Grab these bottom 2 and move them ahead. And now here's the soccer ball. So you're always pushing back on that cap band, and you want all 5 of these bands to move ahead. And now again the same thing. So sometimes I'm grabbing the black band with the first try, and sometimes I'm getting it with the second, but as long as they all come forward. And now these are just the 2. And now we have all 5 here. And now again the same thing. So I definitely would recommend using bands that slide against each other a little bit better. The teal bands are Rainbow Loom brand, and they always seem to work very well. And now here's our last one. Last soccer ball at least, not last band. You want to make sure they're all moving forward. And now here we have these two green bands, and they're going to come out and move into the middle. And this middle pin gets very full, so I would suggest pushing these bands down as far as you can. And back to the start here, this is the last bit here to do. So on the end pin here, you have the two teal bands to move forward, and then also a black and the two white. So you just want all 5 to move ahead. As I said, these pins get very full. Now on this next pin, this is the center of the soccer ball. You should only have the 2 teal to move ahead. So just make sure your hook isn't getting caught on any other color than just your background color. And now this next pin, which is the top of the circle, you want the 2 teal bands. And this is the trickiest part. You want these 2 white bands to move ahead, but you can't reach in and grab them from the inside because they're actually wrapped around the back of that pin. So what you have to do is push your hook out to the side underneath all of these upper bands, whatever color you're working with. Grab the 2 white bands and release them, and then just move them ahead. And you can see it goes over top of this pin, so you just want to straddle that pin. You can either put them on either side or all on the same side, but you just want to get them off of that pin. And now we're just going to move ahead. This time we have just the green in between here. And now again we have all 5 bands on the bottom of this ball. And this is very full in the middle. We just want the green. And you want to be very careful you're not grabbing any other color. Move that ahead. And now we have the upper bands. And remember, this is the tricky one. You have to take your hook, push it out to the side, grab just those bottom 2 white, and move ahead. You want to straddle this here. And then again we have just the green. And here's the last soccer ball. There's going to be all 5 bands. And in the middle, just the 2 teal. And then here's the last part. We have the top 2, and you're going down through, pushing out to the side, grabbing just those 2 white and moving them forward. And you want to straddle this again. And now that is it. So the next thing we're going to do is take it off of the loom, but instead of doing it from the top and pulling it off, I like to do it from the bottom and just work my way up. So I will just carefully be putting my hook in through and releasing these because I don't want the soccer balls to get stretched out of shape. So I'm just reaching in through the middle and carefully releasing here. Sometimes your hook does get caught up on the band, so just try your best not to. So I will just fast forward. Just make sure also that all of the bands are coming off of each pin, because sometimes they do like to get, like, one single band will get hung up on the pin and you won't realize it, and you're working your way up and then it's left all the way down here and it's really getting pulled. So you don't want that to happen. Now before we take the rest of this off of the loom, I have left just these end pins full of bands, because what we need to do is to put the hook down through the middle, make sure it goes through all of the bands and out to the side, and then you're going to take another band, get it on your hook, and then pull this up through. If you twist your hook, it helps not to hook any bands that you don't want. And now put this other end back on. So now this is securing all of those loose bands that are on this pin. So make sure that you're holding on to these two bands so they don't come off. That is critical. And of course, it's going to be the hardest to pull these off because it's so full and tight. And then here is what your soccer balls look like. So you can see all of the black bands that we put on. We just had the edges of those making that slip knot. So it's going to make that pattern of a soccer ball. And if you think any of this is out of shape, you can take the time to play with it. And in between here, you can stretch these out. And now you can see that this is not going to be long enough to put around your wrist, so you're going to need to make an extension. So we're just going to put this off to the side. You want to take your loom with the arrows facing away from you. And I'm just going to put 4 bands. I'll start on the right hand side here. I'm just going to work on this one row, and it's just going to go one right after the other. And then for the last one here, I'm taking these 2 bands, putting it on that pin, and just stretching it out. And now what I'm going to do is reach down in through the middle and just pull back. Just doing that for all of them. And now I'm going to reach my hook in through the middle and pull this off of the loom. And now I'm going to take a clip. I have an S clip here, and I'm just going to put these 2 loose ends, get them to go through that clip. And now on the other side, in the middle here, you should have a circle. I'm going to put my hook through that. I'm going to take another band, pull it through, and put it back on my hook. And now again, I'm going to just put this to the side. And I want to take my loom again. I'm going to put 4 bands. And again, I'm going to put these 2 loose ends. I'm just going to put this on like that so it's easier to grab the middle. And I'm just pulling back, just making this single chain. And you can make any kind of extension you'd like. Since it is a thicker bracelet, you might want to make a thicker extension. Put your hook through the middle and pull this off. And then again, you're taking these 2 loose ends and hooking them through the other side of the clip. And then you are done. And here is another bracelet that I made. This time I used the length of 2 looms, and I used red as the background, so you can see that it is twice as long. So hopefully you found this tutorial helpful and you were able to make a soccer ball bracelet of your own. You can always leave me comments on YouTube and Facebook, or send me pictures of your creations to my Facebook page. Also, feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can stay up to date on all of my latest tutorials. You can also find me on Pinterest and Instagram. Thanks for taking the time to watch my video. Have a great day!